Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the South Sacramento Florin Community Air Protection Steering Committee meeting number 22. This is Janice Lamb-Snyder with the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. We are going to be recording this meeting tonight, and it will be posted onto our Community Air Protection page. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Bill Knowlton, who is the chair of the steering committee.
Good evening, everyone. As always, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us and all of us together. These are important issues, and we know your time is valuable, and we will be respectful every time going forward, but wanted to start with a thank you again for your time and for your commitment. So we'll start with roll call. Bill Knowlton is here. Bishop Baker.
Yeah.
Gary Johansson.
Here.
Patricia Shelby.
Yes, I'm here.
Here. Rhonda Henderson. I know she's here because I heard her. Stephanie Williams.
Rhonda's in the house.
There you go. Stephanie. Tito.
Hi, Bill. I'm here.
Bill is here. And Vincent is out. So we have a quorum. So do we want to introduce and take roll call for the staff?
Sure. Dr. Alberto Ayala.
Happy to be here.
Mark Lautzenheiser.
Here as well, thank you.
Amy Roberts.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here.
Jaime Lemus. David Yang.
Here.
Marina Franceschi.
Evening, I'm here.
Jamie Arno.
Jamie Arno is here.
Brian Krebs.
Brian Krebs is here.
Rafe Porter.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Okay, thank you. That's the Air District staff. CARB staff, Karen Buckley.
I'm present.
Samar Lichtenstein.
Hello, I am here.
Dave Ridley. Okay, and our facilitator for tonight, Errol Brewster.
And I'm here.
All right, I'm done with roll call, Bill.
Okay, so, excuse me, just to make sure everybody can hear and see, if there's any technical issues, please contact David at area code 916-874-4847. Okay, Ariel, would you please take us through the agenda and timing?
Sure. Okay, so after this, we will have a quick administrative items and then some district updates. And we'll be spending 30 minutes discussing the charter amendments issue and seeking some initial thoughts from the steering committee. And we'll be taking public comment during that time on that issue. And then we will we estimating about 45 minutes to talk about the pre-community emissions reduction plan. And that's an opportunity for the steering committee to also discuss planning for some of the future and to start thinking through and working through the elements of a SERP. And then you'll all have an opportunity to talk about when you want to meet next and any potential additional agenda items. And then we'll have general public comment and adjourn. And just a reminder, so I will be tracking your action items for today, and any items that are worthy items but not on the agenda, we'll track those for potential future agenda items. And just want to remind you about the code of conduct. all steering committee members agree to communicate openly and directly, listen attentively, be respectful of each other and other points of view, and it's always helpful to be flexible and open to change and new ideas, to assume positive intentions of others, and be solution focused, looking for those opportunities and possibilities and striving for consensus, for finding solutions that will work for the most folks, and respecting that decision. And lastly, that decisions are be made based on what's best for children's and families in this community and not on personal agendas. And I will turn it back to the chairs. I see that we have Bishop Chris who's arrived. So chairs may want to check for more attendance.
Perfect. All right, David, do you want to take us from here?
Yeah, I could give a logistic update or just a logistic information. So we have, like Bill said, we have stuff available. If you are having any technology issues, please call me at 916-874-4847, or you also message the host or co-host in the message box. For the steering committee discussion on some of the agenda items, the chairs will announce that the format for the discussion is round robin. It will call upon all members to participate in this discussion item. After a roll call, please raise your hand if you have any additional comments or questions. For the other agenda items that is not in the round robin format, please raise your virtual hand. For the public comment period, those that are interested in speaking, please raise your virtual hand. To raise your virtual hand on the computer, click the participation icon at the bottom of the screen. A panel of with a list of all participants will show up at the bottom of that panel. Click the raise hand button, and you'll see a name next to your a hand next to your name, indicating that your hand is raised. When called upon, please unmute your. Oh, I'm sorry. If you're calling from a phone, press *9, and you'll get a message that your hand is raised and to be wait upon to be called upon. To wait to be called upon. When called upon, please unmute yourself. Click on the microphone icon on the lower left of the Zoom application if you're using computer or smartphone, or if you're calling on the phone, press *6. If you're using both the computer and telephone, you may have to unmute both the computer and telephone. You can also email me comments during the public comment period, and I'll read out the comments to the committee. That concludes my logistics information. I'll pass it back to you, Bill.
Thank you, David. So your meeting minutes, meeting summary for August are in your packet, emailed to you. We would entertain a motion to accept those meeting notes.
I move to accept the meeting notes for, Bill, can you designate which ones those are for? Did we get two packets?
August 25th is what I have. Do we have two packets?
I didn't.
No, just one.
Okay. Okay. Approve the previous meeting notes for August 25th. I move that.
Okay, our co-chair, Pat, has moved the motion forward. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Bishop Baker, second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any abstentions for absence? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we will go into district updates. Mark, are you going to kick us off?
Thank you, Bill. I will. So just a very quick one on my end before we move on to a couple of other pieces is we are happy to say, and all of our committee members should have already received an email late last week regarding stipends. So you should have received an email that included both an electronic link to do the what's called a payee data form. And that is one you can just do online. And then we also included the agreement form just acknowledging receipt of stipends and the portions of that. For those that are not able to fill out that is a form you would just fill out, and then you can either scan, take a picture of, and email back to David. We will have that form also available online. Our information technology staff are still just putting that together. So if you'd rather wait for that second form also to be online, you may so do. But otherwise, please just, if you're interested in receiving the stipend and ready for that, please just go ahead and do both the online form and the agreement form. And unless there's any questions, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Janice to give a quick update on the phase 2 monitoring.
Thank you, Mark. So is there any questions? I'll just pause for a second. No? Okay. Phase 2, just really quickly, all of the 6 sites are up, they're running, and we're collecting samples. So we're about a month in to phase 2, and it's been running pretty good. We had a couple of hiccups here and there, but for the most part, we've been doing, it's been collecting information.
And Janice, you were just echoing a little bit. I'm just seeing if we may want to have folks mute their microphones if they're not talking, just to help us avoid getting echoes.
I went ahead and I muted a couple of mics because I also heard the echoes on there. I hope people heard what I had shared. Basically, it's phase 2 is collecting information. All 6 sites are coming up, and that's what I got for tonight.
And that's phase 2 monitoring for any new folks here today.
Yep. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Brian Krebs, who's going to be giving a brief update, a follow-up on a question that was posed to the district last month.
Slide 1, please. While that's coming up, I'd like to say good evening, steering committee members and other members of the public. My name is Brian Krebs, and I'm the program manager of permitting here at the district. At the last steering committee meeting, a member of the steering committee asked the question as it pertained to the Sacramento Power Authority's power plant of where does the pollution go? Due to the compressed time schedule, I was unable to answer that question last meeting, so I will show a few slides that I hope will answer it today. I will begin by discussing a few basics regarding what influences where pollution travels. First is the local meteorology. This is the weather and wind patterns that occur at the site. The second is the stack design, namely the height above ground where the exhaust is released. The last thing is the other exhaust release parameters, such as how fast the exhaust is moving, as well as the temperature of the exhaust. Now, the stack of the SPA, turbine SPA being Sacramento Power Authority, turbine is the main engine that the power plant consists of, is designed to enhance dispersion and dilution in order to decrease the pollution at the ground level, which is where the residents and general public breathe. Now, I have used the term dispersion and dilution previously, and I felt I should define these terms. Very simply, dispersion is the distribution of air pollution in the air, and dilution is the lowering of the amount of air pollution. Slide 2, please. Okay, this slide is a generic representation of how an exhaust plume is dispersed. On the right of the picture, you have the power plant with the exhaust rising upward from the stack, shown in this example by the arrow pointing to the left. Actually, that is, I'm sorry, yeah, okay, the exhaust plume pointing to the left. Okay, I've lost my place, okay. Okay, the wind, which is, in this case, pointing to the left, begins to carry the plume in the direction that the wind is blowing. You can see the highest concentrations start right at the tip of the stack. Then as the wind carries it along, it begins to disperse or scatter, both vertically as well as horizontally. This scattering results in dilution or lowering of the emission concentration. You can see from this picture that the stack height plays a role in how long before the exhaust plume reaches ground level. Next slide, please. Now, the picture on the left is a plot from a computer model simulation that shows the expected plume dispersion that was estimated from this particular project. The local wind patterns taken from the weather station at the Executive Airport just to the west of the site are predominantly coming from the southwest and blowing to the northeast. That is shown by the bolded arrow going upward left to right. The second most prevalent wind direction is when the winds are coming from the northeast and blowing to the southeast, northwest blowing to the southeast, depicted by the smaller, lighter arrow going downward from left to right. From this plot, you can see that the impacts follow these wind patterns. These are contours, and you can see that the going from the darker blue to the through green into orange, that shows the relative concentration. What are the takeaways? First, that a higher stack, the SPA stack is 100 feet above ground level, increases both the time and distance until the exhaust plume reaches the ground, and that the faster that the exhaust exits the stack and the greater the temperature of the exhaust, both attributes of the combustion turbine, as is the case of the SPA power plant, it increases the initial height of the plume and extends the time for the plume to stay above the ground. Overall, these factors, which the SPA facility employs, enhances the dispersion and dilution, resulting in low public exposure. Thank you. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will transition to the charter amendment discussion and guidance. Stephanie, Pat, and Chris. Pat, we can't hear you.
That would be helpful if I'd turn on my mic, huh? I said I don't think I've seen Stephanie yet. It's probably stuck at work.
Yeah, she's not here yet.
Yes. All right. So tonight, what we're really wanting to do is be able to do a review and discussion and give guidance to the to our district to start the recruitment process. So we still need more time. Our committee, that's Stephanie, Bishop Baker, and myself, need more time to complete the charter and get into a final version, but we don't want to hold up recruitment. We need our new members to join the process. But the general guidance we want to discuss and recommend really are in large part in Article 3 of the document. And Article 3 goes into the committee membership. And it is also part of attachment A of the draft document that would help give direction to the district to start the recruiting, anyway, I need to have us really look at what is it that we want to do here with Article 3. And what our general process for recruitment is. Did you get to, Chris, did you want to say anything about it?
And Chris,
I'm looking over it again because I made some notes. I'm trying to find them. Give me a minute here.
Okay. We did in this part, Gary had specifically spoken about the portion in section 3.6, which we're trying to establish a staggered system so we don't lose all of our members at one time, and that we would, as the new members are recruited in, they come in with a 2-year term, and those of us who are reapplying would have initially a 1-year term so that we start to stagger our joining and bringing new members in. And those would become effective January, our first meeting, January of 2021. Did you find your notes, Chris?
Yeah. The part he's talking about what you just mentioned his name. I didn't put his name. Gary, when he wrote, members should have a chance after 2 years to reapply. I just wanted to say that even though we have been on it 2 years, make sure we give others a chance to be on the committee instead of looking at previous ones that's been on there before. That's the only thing I've seen that a question on.
Chris, your sound is getting a little distorted. You may need to
My
try.
internet was interrupted. Did you hear me?
Yeah, well, your sound quality it's having.
Yeah, because no, it's the internet. It keeps coming up saying.
You could try turning off your camera, and that might help you. That might help you to get heard. But I think just what we did here was you raised the question that Gary raised, which I think Pat was going to discuss, and it sounded like, Chris, you were talking about wanting to give preference to new people.
Yeah, because he put on there the people that was on there already, get him a chance to reapply. That's no problem, but I just wanted to make sure the new folks that we kind of look at them, first and give them a chance of what's on their application and then go to the next step. Did you hear that?
Yeah, you're nice and clear now.
All right. That was my.
This also would expand our membership to 15 members. So there is a very good opportunity to bring on new, fresh perspectives from throughout the community.
And then I just don't know, did Gary want to talk a little bit about the issue that he raised, just so that was clear?
No, I think you guys are clearing it up.
Great.
So this is Rhonda. In regards to what Chris just said, you were saying giving preferential treatment to new members. I don't know if we should be doing preferential. They should have.
No, I don't mean not preferential treatment. I mean to kind of look at them, and before we look at the person that's been on for 2 years, not preferential treatment, but just to give someone else a chance that may come on board and have new ideas, because most committees, which is no big deal, a lot of committees, they just continue on with the same people they had.
Right. I'm just thinking that I wanted to clarify. I'm thinking we still need the ones who were or are on the committee, so that we don't start a whole new committee with all new people. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be a mixture of the ones that are already and the new ones too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the point of creating the stagger system. So from what I'm hearing from that dialogue, we are in agreement. We are in agreement with that.
Okay.
If I don't know if you have your amendments in front of you or your attachments.
I do.
Specifically in attachment A, the other thing we wanted to do and was concerned that was expressed by some of the other steering committees was a concern that in expanding that, that residents lost their majority.
I saw that. I had a comment about that too.
And so we wanted to look at that. So that's why I wanted you to look at attachment A along with the discussion in Article 3. Go ahead, Rhonda. What were your concerns in your statements?
Well, they have quite a bit of majority. It's like 12 of them versus the 3, you know, the co-chairs and the chair or something. I don't know if it should be that many.
Are you saying 2/3 of the, if you look at attachment A, item 1, a 2/3 majority of the committee membership must be residents within the defined community boundary.
Okay, well, so let me see what I marked here. I saw where there was 3 that looks like it could be from the current committee, and then 12 that opens up to the general public and businesses and everything.
That's those aren't separate. It would be and at Rhonda as well on that 3.3. There had been an item for discussion about the district rep. The recommendation is to remove that and to just stay with the co-leadership.
Okay.
And so that would still round out of the 15.
Okay.
And then if you look at that, it also tells you trying to look at some people coming from representing community-based organizations, schools, planning. We're looking at 1 person from those.
So that'd be the remaining 12 people. That's what I was saying. So it's more of them than it would be.
It would be.
From
No, it would be. It would be a maximum of 5 out of the 15.
Oh, okay. So I'm not reading that. That's what it means? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It says the number
5
3.
out of the 15, which way?
Okay, because it says 12 remaining members, including residents, environmental. I don't see where it says 5 out of 15.
Okay. Look at attachment A, 1. 2/3 of the membership. And don't forget, your leadership is also resident based,
okay.
or in the right. They're not separate.
Okay.
But I'm taking these notes. We can do that for better clarification.
Okay.
The other was trying to recommend other areas and perspectives. Schools, business, health representatives to also bring in to get some additional voices.
Okay.
And this is great that people are bringing up things and we're having a discussion on it so we can identify areas where we need more clarity. There's a lot of material here.
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
a question.
Yes.
So as we look at this on the 2/3 residents, and then we have 1/3 CBOs, environmental justice, city, county planning. I don't see where you have a business ownership here. So again, in these districts, and certainly in our district, there's a lot of small businesses where you could have somebody who lives outside the boundaries but has a business within the boundaries. I think there's a voice that needs to be heard, especially if we are looking at policy discussions on these issues. I think it's good to have the business community there. So again, just a whiteboard idea, if that was 2/3 majority committee membership or residents or business owners or some combination thereof, I just think we have a huge constituency that are greatly affected by the decisions we make. And I think we have a seat at the table.
Okay.
And just to clarify, Bill, are you suggesting specifically emissions related businesses?
No.
No.
Is it?
No, because I think if you're you know, a person's life savings, a family's life savings is in a small business here in our community, I think that's, again, a voice that is so often is ignored, as we all know, especially small businesses in underserved communities. I think it's good for our folks to have a seat at the table.
Great,
So,
thanks.
so Bill, the in 3.3.3, it does call out businesses there more specifically, but what we were trying to do is, and a little bit further on, we talk about having folks who and business priority of folks who are in the boundaries operating, and you know, we understand that they may not live within the boundaries, but they're here on a daily basis. We would also want CBOs that are actually working in within the community as well.
And I would agree with that piece of it. Again, I would push back just a little bit on the business side, because again, if we have 2/3 and then we have CBOs, it doesn't take long to get to 100%. And so that's my only concern, is that, again, you know, people that are affected.
Looking for the balance, and what we're trying to do is look for that balance.
Yes, that's my only comment. Yeah.
Right. And with those voices as well, we're trying to also, a person could join and have an alternate, but no more than one voice for that organization.
Agree.
Okay. So that a dominance of voice doesn't drown out. Okay, I've made notes of that. So with those items looking at being addressed, what's the comfort level of folks moving forward and being able to give some direction to the district to move forward with the recruitment process for new members?
And Pat, just to clarify, so basically the steering committee is still working on these charter amendments as a whole, but the district can go ahead and recruit with the sort of general discussion that it's heard today to gather the perspectives. Is that what you're looking for?
That is what we're looking for. And with that, go ahead and folks too, when you have your time, make sure that you review attachment B at the participation level, so that the district also understands that we are going to ask for folks to have it's a more robust participation commitment, and identifying your affiliation, as well as we have now included a conflict of interest statement. Yes. So that's attachment C. But I think that there is enough here, and in my discussions with the district as they are reviewing and seeing what their role and responsibilities are with us as well, I think that it is something that we can start to do to move forward, because I believe if we delay it much longer, we're going to be well into the new year trying to start our recruitment process.
I'm in favor of us moving forward and starting the recruitment process. This is Rhonda.
Anyone else would like to voice an opinion? I will agree with Rhonda. I think it's a good idea to go forward. I think we have had a committee that is small, and I think having new ideas, as Bishop Baker said, new ideas, new voices, I think is a good thing for us, and so I would be in favor of going forward.
And maybe the question for the steering committee members are, this is an informal guidance at this point? Are there any steering committee members who would not be comfortable with the district moving ahead with recruitment? Because it's sounding like you folks are orienting that way towards recruitment. Any steering committee members not comfortable, if you can raise the little blue hand. Or speak right now. Given technology. Okay. Pat, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in that case, Rhonda, you sound like you made a motion.
Yes.
For us to give, this is general guidance, and folks, if we agree with that, this is not we're not voting to approve the articles. This is just saying that we support the guidance to have staff move forward.
So are we saying we approve are we giving the go ahead to start the recruitment process? Are we doing that?
Yep,
okay.
That's what we're asking.
That's what I was thinking. So yes, you can make my statement a motion that I think I agree and feel comfortable with us moving ahead and starting the recruitment process for new applicants.
Okay.
All right.
We have a motion on the table by Rhonda. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second from Bishop Baker. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposition? Motion carries.
Pat or Bill, if I may, just real quick, this is Mark. This is great and we appreciate the feedback. We probably will be reaching out not just to other sources we have, but we will probably be reaching out to the committee as well, just to help us reach out into the community for additional participation. So those members on the committee, just be expecting to hear from us. That way you can help us share with the broad swath of our community so we can make sure we get great representation.
And then did we want to hear from the public then? Were there any members of the public who wanted to speak to this? And once again, if you click on participants, and then you can see a blue hand, you click on the blue hand, I see Victoria Vasquez. If you're calling in on the phone, you press *9 and that will raise your little blue hand. Go ahead, Victoria.
Hi there, this is Victoria representing the Sacramento Tree Foundation, and I would be delighted to help as part of the outreach on the tag to spread the word that you are recruiting. Please keep me in the loop.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? And then once again, this charter revision is in process and the steering committee is still working through it. So if public members have thoughts, you can send them along.
Yes, and that is, it would be most helpful to send it to Pat, Pat. This is my new email, right? My new email.
Pat, if you want to say it, I'll write it in chat.
Yes, that's all right. I've got to look at it to make sure I say it right to people. So I'll come back to it. All righty. Okay. We can go forward, Bill.
Bill, you're on mute. We didn't hear anything you said.
I apologize. So we have covered the item. The next item is the pre-community emissions reduction plan, pre-CERP discussion. And for those of you who are watching, we are ahead of schedule. So
all right.
Good stuff. So go ahead, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, and I'm really happy that we're actually able to be a little bit ahead of schedule here. That way, if we, I think it'll be great because it may give us more time, depending on where this discussion goes, just to have the committee itself start to think about next steps as well. So first, just by the way, for those who didn't catch at the beginning, my name is Mark Lautzenheiser. I'm one of the division managers here at the Air District. And so to begin with, as we talk about community emission reduction plans and or pre-SERP activities, I just want to start out with a quick recap on some issues that we have shared previously with the committee over the last, especially last meeting, but we'd even started keying this up a couple meetings ago. So just a quick recap on the efforts. So once the committee does ultimately decide to go to a community emission reduction plan, or SERP for short, it does start some very firm clocks. This is from the statute itself, the law. It does start a 12-month clock. Once that does, what it practically means though is it's not even really a full 12 months for us to be done, based upon having to go to the district board, noticing and CEQA requirements. It practically means that we actually have to have the draft SERP at the end of 8 months. And typically, CARB makes a decision, the official decision, the formal recommendation, if you will, to their board has been in December for the last couple of years. So if and when we do eventually go to a SERP, that would mean that we pretty much would need to be done and ready to go to public notice by August. So just as sort of a quick recap, when we did go ahead and develop the camp, that is something that took us 19 meetings over 18 months. We actually do anticipate that in order to go through and hopefully do a very good job reflecting the ideas and information from the community, that we think it'll take probably much more than the 18 months and then, or more, certainly more than the 19 meetings. And certainly in terms of not being rushed, just knowing how long it takes for the camp, we're probably looking at more time on that as well. As we've previously shared with the committee, and the resources we do have available, this is in terms of the state resources that have come to us. Between now and June, we actually have enough time and resources to accommodate, plus the monitoring we're already doing under the camp and meeting the camp obligations. And by the way, I should probably say camp, for those not familiar with it, is the Community Air Monitoring Plan, because we are currently a camp community. But once we put the resources we are doing toward the monitoring and the outreach efforts under the camp, we are anticipating 4 to 6 meetings between now and June. And so this really doesn't allow for time to really move forward properly to develop a SERP. Next slide, please. So as we talked about at the last meeting, and we really appreciate the preliminary feedback we got from the committee about looking at a pre-SERP versus making that next formal step at a SERP, is we are looking ultimately just to see an official decision from the committee about going ahead and moving forward with pre-SERP efforts this next year, with a commitment then to be revisiting the SERP formal designation mid next year. The formal decision doesn't need to go into CARB until the fall of 2021, but we're talking about being able to come back and have that discussion with the committee in mid 2021 for the following different reasons. One, this time to work on a pre-SERP will give us some of the opportunity to be answering some of the basic questions we need. It's collecting the air monitoring data to help us make informed decisions. Where are the heaviest pollution impacts in our community? Who's most impacted? Where do you want to focus your efforts on reductions? It is about making sure then that we have the resources from the state to go ahead and move forward by the SERP and to actually meet the deadline requirements. Just put in perspective, we've gone back through and looked at it. Over that 18 months, we actually put in about 12,000 staff hours for the camp development. And we are anticipating that we're going to need even more time and interest, because it's definitely a lot of feedback from this group and the new members we'll be bringing into the steering committee, but it's also about taking time to build relationships with those areas or those organizations, both community organizations, but it's also the different organizations such as planning departments where we've at least heard from other communities throughout the state when we've seen their SERPs and how there's been a very strong desire to have non-traditional air quality pieces, but that really impact the community to be reflected in the SERP as well. So this is things such as developing work with planning departments and getting them into the process to see what commitments they may be willing to make as well based upon the community interest. And so to this extent, though, we should know by end of first quarter next year, beginning of the second quarter, that's the Q1, Q2 there in the notes, what funding and resources we're getting for this from the state for that following year. And so this plan would allow the steering committee members time that we can start the work early. So even though we're recommending that we're not going to a formal SERP at this point, we are actually proposing that we use our next meetings the rest of this year to both be reviewing the data that we're collecting into the camp and to actually start this work. There is nothing that prohibits us from getting started, and certainly if there are even reductions that we see are possible earlier on, that we can start with them. Local solutions. What can we do even as we move forward? Additional commitments as we do when we do go to a formal SERP, such as more frequent meetings. Pat already mentioned in terms of the going out to the new membership about the increased steering committee membership and their participation and the help as we move forward on this. And I already talked about providing time to build a relationship and the work with the various partners we have going on. So with that said, next slide, please. So what we are looking to do, though, is although we did already get preliminary feedback from the committee last meeting, that this pre-SERP effort for the next year seemed to make a lot of sense. We didn't ask the committee to take formal action last month because we were still providing this information to the committee and we wanted the committee to have time to think about it and consider it. We also did drop off as that handout, just for everyone's benefit in the committee, the list of different elements that will be required when we do formally go to a SERP. So our recommendation, and then we'll be opening up to the committee for discussion and public comment and decision, is that we do start the pre-SERP groundwork now, and that we do plan on revisiting the SERP formal designation in mid-2021. And with that, I would turn it back over to the chairs and the committee for questions and or discussion amongst yourselves.
Questions for Mark?
Mark, this is Pat speaking. When you say that it's going to take more time, the basis of that is based on what? What have SERPs been taking in other, or maybe there's someone from CARB who has an idea about that too, perhaps Karen. What kind of timeframes have the SERPs been taking to actually put one together?
This is Karen.
Oh, go ahead, Karen.
Their statute requires that they take 1 year. So we can't change it unless statute changes, of course. But as it's written now, Christina Garcia wants, when it's approved by when our CARB board decides you guys move to a SERP, that starts the clock like Mark talked about. And we have 1 year from then.
So the clock is fixed. It doesn't change.
Correct.
Okay, with that. And then do we have any sense or of what kind of meetings or multiple meetings that other districts have taken when they're actually building their SERP?
Yeah, they start typically at 1 a month, and then it usually kicks up to 2. And then sometimes there's also subcommittees. So it can get pretty intense. I think now that we've seen how people move through them, it might be easier to kind of set the stage so we know we have this much time and we have to talk about this. But it moves very fast and it is a very big lift.
And Pat, maybe an answer to your question, although we didn't include it back in this slide. One thing the committee may recall we shared with last month. So for those on the committee or those in the public, if you want to take a look at last month's slides on our website as well, we did poll some of the other districts because there were several communities, I'll say, who had even SERPs in year one. And then there were one district or one community did go to a SERP in year two of the program. And when we looked at the number of meetings on average, it seemed to be, in talking with other districts, it varied. There were some that were lower, but the average seemed to be around between 20 and 30 meetings to get through the SERP within that 12-month time frame. I actually have a small update on something I shared with the committee last month. I shared that San Diego is sort of a good analogy for us. They also were a camp, originally a community monitoring plan. They did make the decision to go to a SERP, and that it was their committee that had come back sort of halfway through the process and said that they were looking for more time now that that 12-month clock had started. What I just most recently heard from San Diego Air District on this is that they are taking basically a shortened SERP in order to meet their 12-month time frame, but with the recognition that they have actually not gotten through, they and the committee are in agreement that they actually are looking for more time and trying to come back to this because of that 12-month commitment. And so it's in light of these different reasons and just the resources we do have for meetings the rest of this year that we were suggesting that we want to start on the work. That's why we're suggesting we start on the work now, so that when we are ready to make that commitment, that hopefully then we can actually produce, the committee can help us produce a good finished SERP at the end of that 12-month clock.
Okay, which is really more like an 8-month clock.
That was my point. I was just gonna
because we have to take the draft out to the public for review and comment. Okay, and leave ourselves time to adjust after our reviews and comments. Am I correct there, Mark?
You are correct. And just for the committee's broader reminder on what that piece was, assuming that CARB makes the decisions that they've been making them in December the last year on this, and that I believe they're shooting for December of this year as well to go to their board. Our last board meeting is in October because of the holiday schedule in November and December for when our board meets. So then working backward from October, we have to go to notice for the board meeting, and we have to go to CEQA, which is also a public comment period prior to that, which pushed us to having a draft final product by August. And probably one thing that David just messaged me on as an additional reminder, even on the camp, when we thought we had already addressed a lot of the committee's main questions and concerns, and we came out with the draft, we did receive a lot of very helpful and good feedback, but there was so much feedback even on the camp that we actually needed a month to incorporate the feedback that we got on the camp. And that was not a product that had to go to CEQA notification or then notification for the board. So just making sure that we have time to not only get the feedback from the community and the committee and then put that into a document, but then it's actually then getting that out and addressing any comments that do come in.
Okay, all right. And from people that I had talked to who were going through SERPs, and many of the communities started way ahead of us because they had multi-years of data and local data that they were working with. So they had a really clear idea of their of what they were working toward, and we're still getting our data, our phase 2. Mark, our phase 2 will probably get that information back. What, at the end of 3 months, 2 months? What?
Right, great question. We actually, I'll jump ahead. I won't go to the slide itself. We're actually going to give the committee some information on when the data from the phase 2 is going to come in.
I won't jump ahead then.
Well,
but you had sent a packet out giving us the outline out of the blueprint. There are elements 1 through 11 to be looked at. I would encourage members, make sure that you look at this. This is not going to be an easy lift, and there is some important collaborations and partnerships that need to be built to be able to execute strategies for reducing the emissions, and other agencies that are going to have some elements that impact this SERP. It's not just the air district. Am I correct there, Mark?
That is correct. It's one of those cases where the SERP is a district document, but at least, and this is, maybe our committee will feel differently, but at least what I've heard and seen from other committees around the state, other communities, I should say, around the state, has been a strong interest in areas that are not always either fully within or at all within the control or purview of the air district. So to the extent that there's an interest in having elements addressing traffic routing or land use decisions, those are areas where if there is going to be any kind of a commitment in the SERP itself, it does require those agencies to be buying off and agreeing to those pieces as well.
Okay. That's what I thought. This is, it's more complex so that you have also have the ability of having more success, because if we don't have control over a decision-making process like traffic routing, air district has no control over that. That is something we'd have to work with local jurisdictions, governmental agencies, or Caltrans, or someone who may have some of those pieces.
I see a hand that was raised. Was that you, Karen?
That was me.
Okay.
I would say, Pat, even if there are strategies that you guys decide are important to the community that are not within the jurisdiction of the district or even CARB, they can still be included in the SERP.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to say it's an issue that's important, and we as a group, and we as kind of the royal we, so it's district, CARB, and the group and the steering committee, we can all work together to see how we can get those people to the table. So
Right.
you can include it, we just can't force it. You see what I'm saying?
Correct. Which is during this time, if we can start to build those relationships so that we are bringing folks to the table early in the process, we'll have more success.
Yes.
Because we can talk about schools all day long, but if schools aren't part of the at the table, we don't have any controls over schools.
True. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Rhonda, did I hear you saying something?
No, you did not.
Oh, okay. Oh, is it?
Not been me crunching on my cheese stick.
Okay. I'll do that. All right. What do you need us? What else do you need us to do with this piece?
Yeah, were there any other members of the steering committee who had comments or questions?
You folks are really quiet tonight.
Tito moved his lips, but we can't hear him. I saw you, Tito. So Pat, I think what we need is an action, a recommended action from the steering committee, which is as we have written on the slide, which is, that the steering committee is agreeing that, we're going to start the pre-SERP groundwork, and that we're going to revisit the SERP formal designation in mid-2021.
Thank you, Janice. So
and let me just add on to revisit the SERP formal designation with an anticipation that we would go to the SERP next fall in a formal method, and then in December, if that's the usual time that CARB makes that decision, that we would start that time clock. But we have that good year to be able to hit the ground running and not be begging for more time later. That's the premise. Okay.
Okay. Is that a motion?
I move and make that a motion to start the pre-SERP groundwork and to revisit the SERP formal designation.
Pat, do you
again.
want to take public comments first,
Um,
if there's any?
certainly, let's do that.
Okay. So are there any public comments?
And once again, if you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Otherwise, you click on the participants list and then you'll see the blue hand and you raise your hand that way.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll
I
second it.
second the motion. This is Rhonda.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion from steering committee members? All those in favor say aye.
Oh, can we do a roll call to make sure we have this vote?
I'm sorry.
Let's do this as a roll call to make sure we have the vote.
Okay, we have a friendly amendment for a roll call vote. Bishop Baker.
Turn your sound on.
Okay. Gary Johansson.
Yes.
Gary is a yes. Patricia Shelby.
Yes.
Yes. Rhonda Henderson.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Tito.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Bishop Baker.
I'm not
Yep.
seeing, we may have lost him.
Okay, and your chair is a yes. So
Did we
one,
get quorum?
yeah, and we do have quorum. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the motion carries with quorum, and we will put this in motion and go forward. Thank you, Pat, for all of your hard work on this as well as all the staff.
Sounds great. So in light of the decision from this recommendation from the committee, which I think is a great approach, so we can go ahead and start a lot of this work. And as I already mentioned, certainly as we're moving along, you know, if either because of resources or just early on, if we identify local solutions, we can start early. You know, we're not bound to waiting until we become a formal SERP to be looking to reduce emissions in your community. And I think that's always an important thing to highlight, because it doesn't have to wait until a formalized plan to try and find ways to bring cleaner air to not just your community, but all of Sacramento to the extent we can. That said, though, we do want to at least, and since we are moving very nicely on time, we have probably as much time as the committee would like to take on this at the moment, is just starting to outline then a little bit of what the committee's priorities may be as we move forward then over this next 4 to 6 meetings between now and basically June of next year. We're not necessarily looking for an answer tonight. If the committee is comfortable, they certainly can provide us even more specific guidance, but we wanted to at least sort of key up some of the issues that the committee has raised over the last few months that seem to be of particular importance to the committee, such as about the air quality data, when that data will start being available to them, questions that come up about just more information on the community profile, emissions inventory, land use. I won't read through the entire slide. I know everyone can read a slide themselves, but this is sort of a list of some of the items that we've heard about from the committee, you know, especially like on land use. We just talked about that one. You know, that may impact roadway decisions, et cetera. But all of these we tried to highlight from the different SERP elements. That handout, it's a 3-page handout that we had previously shared with the committee, and I think we also dropped off hard copies in the last week of that as well for the committee members. So
And the link has just been put in the chat by Janice.
Oh, excellent. And so Janice is even providing that link. Perfect. So we tried to take some of the items that the committee, this is not intended to be an all-inclusive list, meaning it's not meant to capture everything, but just some of the things we've heard from the committee so far and where they might fall out within those SERP elements. If there are any of these that the committee may want us just to do a very high level, like what does community profile mean? What falls under that, for example? Just make sure we're all talking on the same page as then the committee discusses and thinks, what are your priorities to try and tackle over the next few meetings? Or at least to start the process of tackling some of these areas. So air quality data and timeline, I'll come back to in the next slide, because we actually can give you some ideas about when the phase 2 data will be available, when the trailer for phase 3 will be deployed. Community profile is getting into even more about, we already have some information, but it may be that there's more information about demographics, economics, education in the community. Emission inventory is different from the air quality data that we're collecting with the monitorings, but this is what data, and we've shared some of this with the committee previously as part of the camp work, but this is about the inventory from all of the known businesses, what we call our stationary sources that are in the community. Land use and urban planning would be everything from decisions that are going forward on routing of traffic. It's potentially about decisions of new projects that are coming into your community. And again, these areas may not always be fully within the control of the air district, but we know that they may be of great interest to the community. So, what information may be needed on that and how does that work into the eventual plan? We've talked in the past a little about incentives and how incentive-based strategies can factor in as ways to reduce emissions in the community. And then also just on, we've talked a little bit on some areas that have been very specifically requested, where we've had Brian come in now and talk a couple of times on some of our stationary sources. But to the extent that as we start getting data, or if there are just other questions from the community about understanding what's involved with permitting and just what that process is and how that may play a part in terms of developing reductions in your community. Next slide real quick, Janice, then I think we'll come back to this one we can come back to this one and let the committee itself discuss. But just real quickly to give the committee a little bit of a timeline as well on what's going on with the data. So as has already been mentioned in some of our past meetings, the phase 1 data, we started with some of those monitors back in June of last summer. All of those have now been in place for at least a few months. And so we do have that particulate matter and some ozone data going back. The phase 2 monitoring did start already last month, and we do now have all 6 of those sites up and running. And we will be having the first of those data. So quick recap, the committee had asked us to do at least 2 quarters of monitoring with the phase 2. We're doing summer monitoring of August through October to begin with. And then we'll be doing winter monitoring of November through January. We do expect, since it's unlikely we'll have a in-person meeting probably in December just with the holidays, we'll be able to share the data in a meeting form, in a committee meeting by January of 2021. The data will probably be ready sooner than that, and we can send that out to the committee prior to discussing it in a committee meeting, whether it be for just your own use or use of the technical advisory group that's being pulled together by the committee. The phase 2 data for the winter should be available by what I'm going to call early spring, the March-April timeframe. And with that 2 sets of data, we will be coming back and asking the committee in the second quarter, into the second quarter, beginning of third quarter, about deciding on where you would like to see the trailer deployed for the phase 3 monitoring. And then if we are at the point of making a decision next year on a SERP, we will be already having some of that data from even the phase 3 trailer by that decision timeframe in October. So I just wanted to put this slide up to give, and Pat, you'd even sort of preface this question a little bit about like when will we start seeing even more of the data coming in. And this is to give the committee that information. And certainly as the data comes in on the phase 2, we can make that available as it becomes available. But if you're looking at like the entire quarter, it'll usually lag about a month just by the time we get the results back from the lab and are able to put that into a usable format. And when I do say usable format, I know the committee's heard this before. We're talking that both raw data and anything else that's available from it is all out there. We're not talking about, oh, this data isn't good, don't include it. If there's data, it will be available.
Rhonda, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just want to say I like this chart. It's very clear. So now I have a better understanding of when things will be ready for us to see the data.
Excellent. Well, credit to David and Janice then on this nice little timeline chart. I will give credit where credit is deserved. So with that said, though, we really want to now just sort of turn it back over to the committee for the committee to discuss and assess what you think might be some of your priorities. Actually, we'll even go ahead and pull up the next slide real quick, and we can always go back to the previous one if you want to see that list again. But just so you can be thinking out, there are some things that we know we'll already have to include in some of the future meetings, coming back and discussing the data, making that decision still on community outreach and the phase 3 site decisions. But all the other SERP decisions, though, as the priorities may exist for the committee, we want to give you guys just an opportunity to go back and sort of talk about them. And I know at least when we had a pre-meeting with the chairs, we weren't really sure if the committee would be ready to make decisions tonight, but we at least want the committee to be able to have a good discussion on it. And if needed, we can always follow up with a survey or other means then finding for sure the committee's priorities on moving forward with the next few meetings. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Pat and Bill.
I was just going to add one thing in as well too, and you all may also identify, if there's certain SERP elements that you need more information on as well before you can make a decision if you want to go through with it. So just throwing that out there.
Thank you, Ariel. And Janice, thank you. You're already going back to this slide. This was not intended to be the only areas for you to consider. These are simply some of the list that we have been hearing from the committee over the last few months. But certainly you have the list of all the 11 elements of moving forward with the SERP. So if there are other elements that are of importance to the committee to try and get as part of the pre-SERP work, by all means, please consider that as well.
Thank you guys very, very much. This was, again, a lot of hard work, a lot of hours go into this. So again, thank you for your professionalism and your clarity. It's really helpful. Pat, do you have anything?
Yes, I really am looking at the synopsis of the community emissions reduction plan document that you sent out to us, along with Appendix C for this reduction. I am looking at, and I think that it has been part of our discussion, our air quality data, and I love the chart that you just gave us. We can see when that's going to start to come in. That's also a role where our TAG will also be looking at that data too, to give us some perspective with that. Mine is in the community profile, or element 3. And just as I don't know if everyone has theirs with them, but let me read this to you. This can include, this not saying it must, but it can include factors such as racial and income distribution, tree cover. Remember, we had a little bit of discussion about heat islands before. We need to get more information about that. Our tree cover, our public transit availability, our housing burden, what's happening, where are our families in the cost of their housing or becoming unhoused, even if not homeless. But we have a lot of sofa surfing and house and temporary home sharing happening in this community as well. Language isolation, just those pieces of information that that we also know. We know in this community we have a child and mother mortality rate that is particularly high for African American women and their babies. and what role does pollution contribute to that? And now with the complexity of COVID on top of this, and knowing that people, when their respiratory systems are compromised, that they are more susceptible to COVID. Those are pieces of information that I'm very much interested in, and they are going to take some level of partnerships that we need to develop, because that is not information that the Air District has, but we have other entities to partner with to get more data on that. Certainly, of which Kaiser plays a major role already in the community, along with Methodist Hospital and Dignity Health, from some of the health programs. But we also have some very active community-based organizations working on these entities. And what has COVID done? What's the economic burden, and what's that hit? Because our small businesses are suffering a great deal under what's happened. I got to talk with Vincent for a really short amount of time today, and he hopes to join us next month. He's recovering well, but one of the things that we were talking about is just air filtration. He was sharing with me. He goes, Pat, I can afford to buy some filters for my home when we were having terrible smoke and all of that. But we have families who don't have that capacity, and how we can help with that. And Janice enlightened me about even some of the machines that people have been buying for to help their environment inside is emitting ozone. And so they're poisoning themselves with ozone sometimes inside their homes because they don't know any better. So all of those types of things are of interest to me, and I think are high on the list from some of what we've talked about before.
And so we can start just, working through each one of the broad categories of elements and sort of talking through these. So, Pat has laid out some of her thoughts about the community profile piece. Other steering committee members, do you have thoughts about that one in particular? Anything in addition?
I'm
Hi,
just
Chris.
back online. Power went out.
Chris, try turning off your video again. See if that helps.
Yeah, if you can turn off your video, I think we can hear you.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
It's broken up, Chris. Try again.
Yeah, turn off your video for a second and then talk. There's a little delay. All right, try to talk now. Yeah, talk for a second and then talk. There's a little delay.
I was saying I'm back online because the power had went out.
Oh, the power went out.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very clear now.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I was off for a while, because I guess SMUD had a rolling blackout or something.
Pat, you're on mute.
I'm saying it's a little bit patchy, Chris, but it's better.
Okay.
Welcome back. Chris,
well, we'll be here for a while.
Okay, good. Did you want to add some thoughts about pre-SERP work, what your priorities are, or if you want to talk about this element?
No, I didn't even hear what you guys was talking about because of power going out. I'm going to read over. Where are we at?
We moved really fast. We're now on the pre-SERP. People took a vote to agree to proceed with the pre-SERP. So now we're talking about what parts you all might want to start working on first, what your priorities are to start working on or finding or studying or working on partnering on. So if you want to share some thoughts on that.
I tell you, I'll call Pat tomorrow and get an update because I'm gonna read some of this. I know I had some notes, but on a few things, but now I'm lost that the power went out.
Okay.
Okay.
Chris, we'll do a catch-up conversation as well.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Do we have any other thoughts from committee members?
Where's my notes?
So Tito, Gary, Rhonda, what, if we're going to start working towards a SERP, what do you most want to start looking at and taking up? Or what do you need to find out more about to decide if you want to take it up?
Are there any like best practices, tips or lists or something that we can kind of look at and follow so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Karen,
Okay.
do you have any thoughts about that?
I'm sure there are some things that we could come up with that could help. I do know that I sent the link to Janice. We have our SERP training videos, so those might help. We can also look at some of the other SERPs to see what they've done. And then there is the checklist at the end of Appendix C.
Okay.
So those should be helpful.
Okay.
Rhonda, this is Mark. The only other thing I might throw out there is, and we'll definitely help get that shared out there so the committee can take use of any existing resources out there. In part, this is about just where you and the other committee members and the community as a whole may think your priorities lie. As the example I give is this. I've listened into a couple of the other SERPs that have gone through and been approved, or when they were going through the approval process. And some communities, a big focus was because they're right next to like refineries. So obviously they had a very particular interest in certain categories of the SERP elements had a bigger focus to them. Some areas were more concerned about, especially where they had significant truck traffic. So they were looking more at decisions that may not always fall within the control of the district or CAR, but were these good land use decisions. So in part, we can get you guys the tools that CARB has come up with, but in part, the priority that is probably going to be that importance that you see, and as Pat, I appreciate hearing Pat's thoughts there about why that community profile sort of rises to the top in her mind, or not saying it's the only thing, but why she was identifying that as sort of an important area to looking at.
Okay. That sounds good.
Can I share a little bit, maybe some reflection about the last couple of years? This is Janice with the Air District. From what I, heard feedback from you all, and one of the things that continuously come up, and correct me if I'm wrong, is land use and urban planning, right? And we all know that has a tie into, improving air quality. And we have to work with lots of agencies, right? Different agencies, since the Air District doesn't have that authority. And so, and this is just a suggestion, it might be helpful for us to, start building that background and, that understanding about how land use can play a role, how the community members can utilize your rights, right, through the public process with the different planning agencies. So, I'll throw that out there as a recommendation. That's something that we probably want to start earlier than later, because we have to start building those relationships.
Okay, sounds good.
Can I share something real quick?
Yes, Tito, please.
So I can help reflect on previous meetings when we talked about community engagement and really reaching out to the various community from various culture and competencies and knowledge base. I feel like, you know, we haven't really delve into it deeply as far as how can we increase participation, how can we get a sense of what the community members and business owners are experiencing right now. I mean, this is, if anything, a trigger point, right? So COVID is one, and obviously all the fires that are burning in our area, that I could afford to take some time off and go up the mountains, but these people cannot afford that. So there's some economic inequalities there. PPE, I mean, for the first time I felt like, my God, I can wear a PPE and feel I'm protected from COVID and from bad air, right? So how can we leverage the resources, the knowledge, where we can say, hey, you know, along with COVID, you need to know about clean air as well, and where there's, you know, knowing that there are resources available for them. If we can maybe have some kind of funding, some kind of support, or even work with community organizations out there that are out in the forefront, reaching out and educating people about COVID, to talk about clean air. You know, that why would we have to wear a mask? COVID might come and go, but the bad air is going to stay with you forever unless you're educated, unless you know how to protect yourself. Short of maybe investing in what Pat said about air filtrations and things of that nature. I mean, how much money can we buy, and you know, in terms of getting everybody a tool like that, right? It just doesn't seem realistic, but that seems like to be the case. I think right now, if we can talk a little bit about community engagement, how do we create tools that get them to participate? Right now, the air is so bad that, you know, if you can engage them, say, hey, share with us, what have some experience you had within the last 4 weeks or so, not just the weather, but the climate change and all this. How can you become engaged and be more active, participate in our meetings, participate in our steering committee, but also, you know, here are some tools for you, you know, PPE tool, equipment, or whatever it is. I hope I'm not rambling on, but I just thought I'd share that with you from my perspective.
I think that's a great perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that you're onto something with that, you know, because we also need to find who are the other people who are already working in the community, doing some of these things too, and partner and amplify their work, because that's right along the conversation I was having earlier. Our air quality, unfortunately, is still going to be impacted, because it seems that with climate change, these forest fires and grass fires are going to be a piece of the norm. And then what are we going to do with that? They're absolutely right. How do you use PPE? What are the actions you should take? I actually saw somebody out running, jogging in that air, right? And you're like, what are you doing? And I saw some people out with their babies in a stroller. And these babies are sucking in this, you know, somebody's forest or somebody's house that burnt up. So those are concerns. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tito. And I think the more diverse we are in our recruitment process, getting people, again, from the community that, again, can reach out to these different demographics is huge. And I think for the CBOs, like with the Macro Partnership, we can get information out, you know, to our business community, also to our residential community, because we have our community center there. And we get a lot of information out to our residents as well. So we can certainly be as helpful as needed. All you have to do is ask and not ask, but you know what I'm saying. Say, hey, Bill, we'd like to get this information out. We will get this information out to both the business community and the residential, and happy to do it. Anyone else have anything they'd like to bring up? Okay.
I'd like to hear from the public as well on this.
Those head in there next. Anyone from the public would like to comment?
Okay, I see Victoria. Before you start, Victoria, just a reminder, public, if you're on the phone, you can press *9, or if you're at the full Zoom, you click on the participants and then you'll see a little blue hand. Go ahead, Victoria.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to mention that the City of Sacramento just launched their sacramentocovidrelief.org website, and they have a grant opportunity for people to spread the word about the resources the city has for COVID. It might be worth looking to see if we could get involved with that messaging while they're paying people to spread the word.
Very good.
I'll put the address of the website in the chat, and I think that grant closes on the 25th, so that might be something we want to jump on before the next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Adrian Wren. Victoria, that was it? You're done then?
Yes,
Great.
thanks so much.
Great. Okay, Adrian Wren from Valley Vision, go ahead.
Thanks, Ariel. Yeah, this is Adrian Wren from Valley Vision. I actually had, it's really a question for Air District staff and CARB staff more than anyone about the district's funding limitations that Mark spoke about. Surely the Sac Metro Air District isn't the only district facing limited resources in staffing their AB 617 steering committees. So my question is, what are the other districts in the state doing to address some of these funding gaps? Are they pushing for more funding from the state? Are they restructuring their existing budgets? And really, what can we do here in Sacramento to address this gap? Thanks.
So thank you, Adrian, for the question. And maybe I'll start it up, and then if CARB wants to add anything, or certainly Alberto as well. This has been definitely an ongoing discussion with all of the air districts. You know, it starts at the legislative level to try and make sure the legislature is putting enough resources to go for that. Obviously, one of the things we've all been seeing and dealing with now for the last few months is the unexpected but very significant impacts of COVID on the state budget as well. So it is something that has been a concern from day one, really, for the air districts, was hoping that there would be the necessary resources from the state to go ahead and be handling this new mandate associated with 617. As what other air districts are doing, at least from what I've heard, Bay Area was, and I use the term successful, but there is a very big limitation when I use the term successful as well. They were successful in passing an increase in some fees on some of their businesses, but it actually, as successful as that was in its own way, it also represents only though a fraction of their funding towards 617. So it was more, I don't want to speak for them that it's only symbolic, but it doesn't even begin to take the place or really provide a much bigger, it was like about 10% impact on their overall funding. So it is definitely just something that as we move forward, certainly, and as we've shared with this committee, you know, as the legislature does move forward this next year, in particular, especially as we hopefully start to come out of the COVID impacts, and as the legislature starts to make their new decisions this next year, it will really require not just a push by air districts, but by community groups and NGOs and everyone else, that they hopefully provide the necessary resources statewide, not just for the existing communities, but for, as we talked about before, we know there are other communities in need, both here in Sacramento and elsewhere in the state, that would love to be a part of these type of programs. And what we need is the resources from the state. And when I'm talking about the state, I'm talking about the legislature at the starting point, to not make Karen think she's on the spot of saying it's just CARB.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. For all of the money for AB 617, it really is, like Mark said, it really comes through the legislature, and the districts determine how that money all gets split up. Sometimes the legislature even decides it. So we don't have a crystal ball. It would be great if we did, but I would say hang in there with us, and hopefully they will provide additional funding.
And the one other thing maybe I'll add to that is we've been working on, it sort of got sidetracked with some of the, as you might imagine, our agency was pretty impacted by the wildfires, a lot of additional side work going on associated with that this past month plus now of it. But one of the things we're also still going to be getting back to the committee is both at the legislative level, who you can reach out to and how you can help advocate for resources, but also then when it does get past the legislative level and when that decision is happening at the CARB district level, who you can reach out to and how you can help with that process as well. But obviously the biggest starting point is having a bigger pie to begin with, as opposed to then the cutting up of a small pie. You'd rather start with a bigger pie when you're cutting that up to begin with, and that's at that legislative level. But we're going to get information both for the legislative work that's going to be coming up starting very early 2021, and the work that is coming up in the next few months between CARB and the districts on how to slice the pie that we do have.
So Adrian, did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks Adrian. Any other members of the public? Okay, with that, we're back to the chairs. If you wanted to take the next steps.
Before the public is finished, I do have a question for Victoria Vasquez for Sacramento Tree Foundation. We had a prior conversation just looking at sometimes what some of the strategies and things are. You had a program where you were trying to put some trees in between the freeway and the residential areas, and you were having to work with Caltrans. What was the status of the support or lack of support, Victoria, that happened there?
That project is on hold, and it's because we can't get the support of Caltrans to water the trees in an appropriate way through the my program, the South Sacramento Neighborhoods Program. We got 2 adopt a highway permits to put over 400 trees on Highway 99 at 47th and at Fruit Ridge exits. But unfortunately, they say they made a mistake when they said that we could tap into their water to water the trees, and that they should not have checked that box. And in fact, we could not access the water that is on the interchanges, that we could water the trees ourselves somehow, and that wasn't good enough. And so they came back and said, well, why don't you cut down the number of trees, because it will encourage a homeless encampment to have that many trees on the interchanges. So we cut the number of trees down to about 200. And they said, well, can you lump the trees back together, and then we will use some existing irrigation we have to water the turf. But the turf was more important than planting the trees. So we offered to mulch the whole thing and use the sprinklers, which was a no. And then we reached out and got several letters of support from Congressman Barra and several council members and an assemblyman. And we're still on hold. We even spoke with the EPA about the project to see why we cannot access the water and lay our own temporary drip system to support those trees, to protect the residents that are right there against the freeway and Pacific Park and the schools and all of the different places that are, right there butted up against 99. So we're in a holding pattern at this point with the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change happening and signed. Hopefully that can, lend some leverage, or we can come to a new solution, because until now, I don't think that trees were thought of on the freeway as anything except, or the highway as anything except beautification. They weren't seen as a tool for public health. So if anyone has any connections with Caltrans or would like to help me relight this project, it is, like I said, it's on hold, and it's unfortunate. It's like something I'd love to get done. We did have as part of my grant, we had the labor of SRCC to plant the trees. And because of this kind of stalling out, we don't have that contract anymore. I have a new grant that doesn't have labor, so it would have to be, I'd have to find a new way to plant the trees safely on the freeway or on the highway, because that's not something I'd want to bring, community volunteers in to do. So that's where I'm at with that.
Thank you. And I just wanted that to illustrate that sometimes there are some simple solutions, like helping with trees to improve air quality. But if we don't get those partnerships, even that working to reduce risk and or reduce or mitigate emissions. That's what we also have to look at. How do we build those partnerships so we can have the leverage to be successful? Thank you for all your efforts, Victoria. It makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Thank you for remembering.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks so much.
Okay, folks, where are we at on this one now?
All right, I think we're
I think we're good. I think we are to new business. Correct?
So if Mark or Janice, could you just sort of tie a bow on this one in terms of what our next steps are going to be?
Certainly. So I think where we'll go with this one next is I think it sounds like the committee's had some great discussion here. We'll go ahead and help follow up. Let me back up 1 second. If there are other ideas that haven't already been talked about here tonight, please go ahead and share those either via Bill and Pat or directly to us so we can go ahead and pull everything together into a list that we can share to allow the committee. I'm going to look to Pat to make sure I'm getting some thoughts here correctly. But it pulled together the list to make sure it's not just what we shared here, but if there's anything else that should be included. So the committee members then can go ahead and prioritize which ones are most important via survey. And that way then we can go ahead and bring that back to the group for helping planning out the next few meetings.
Yes, that's best.
And one of the things that I wanted to remind just all of us here is that there are still outstanding community air monitoring program task. We have it listed here on the bottom, so I don't want to get it to have that lost. And, it's, we can do regular reportings, discussing the data. Tito, you talked a lot about community outreach. How do we get this message out to the community so that they can really understand and to be able to protect their health. And also, we are also going to be looking at the phase 3 trailer site decision as well as we're planning out these meetings. I just wanted to make sure that I brought that back up to the forefront as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, new business.
New business.
When do you folks want to meet next, right?
Look at that, or were there any other items that people wanted to bring up on future agenda? I had mentioned before, so in looking at the new business, I would very much like to have the presentation from, I don't know what division of the Air District did the heat islands at some point.
Yeah, that's from our Transportation and Climate Change Division. And is Jaime on the line today? I don't think so. I do want to make an introduction to a new manager at the Air District. His name is Rafe Porter. He is the program manager and he works with Jaime. And he's going to be overseeing those programs. And so I just wanted to make a quick introduction since he's a new name and a new face here at the Air District.
Hello, Rafe.
Hi, everyone. Hey, steering committee members and members of the public. Good to virtually meet you all. And yeah, I'll put in the chat, I'll put all my contact information if you want to reach out. We're happy to share anything on the urban heat island or anything else that we oversee at Transportation and Climate Change. So it's been a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, Ray, for being a part of this conversation. I have worked with Rafe for quite some time, and he's a hard worker and is a welcome addition. So welcome aboard.
So Pat, you didn't give us your new email address yet.
Oh, okay. It's it's in the chat. I think Janice had found it. It's Pat Shelby, all one word, PATSHELBY dot AB617 @gmail.com.
Okay. All
I
right.
just reposted it. in the
Okay.
chat.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Okay. When
What about the next meeting?
that's where I was headed next. So next meeting, if we want to look at our calendars, we have
Holiday season coming up.
right.
Merely a suggestion that I'll sort of throw out there by Mark with the Air District. One suggestion might be, since normally we do meet the end of the month, fourth Tuesday, but since, again, when we get into November and December, those will hit the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holiday timeframe and any other holidays that may be celebrated right around there as well. In light of the fact we're still going to need to survey the committee to get your thoughts on the priorities, I might throw out there and suggest that we plan a meeting in early November instead of, say, late October, in order to give the committee time to prioritize some of these topics, and we can come back with that then to the committee. And then, since we most likely, I'm guessing, like last year, would not be interested in meeting around Thanksgiving and the Christmas holiday, that would sort of give a little bit, spread that out just a little bit differently as opposed to a really long gap. So I would just sort of put that out there as food for thought.
Okay. So you're thinking second Tuesday in November?
And I see Chris has his hand up.
Yeah, I want to put in a request for better cable so I can. I thought maybe I'll ask the staff if they can help me out on.
I think
Bishop
you're in the
Baker.
wrong. I think you're in the wrong meeting, brother.
Hey, take your stipend and pay it.
Look, I'm paying. Look, I'm paying for the highest Wi-Fi I'm paying for, and it keeps going in and out.
No, Bishop Baker, I was actually going to suggest that to staff after the meeting, if they can offer you tech support, whatever, so that we can make sure you can participate actively.
No, it's actually Comcast. They dug up some stuff here, and about 45 tenants are complaining because it's going in and out.
Wow.
Even my phone line, my landline, it's terrible.
Oh, wow.
I just thought maybe the staff might have had a little extra money somewhere, and maybe.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Well,
Send you a check soon.
Just for the record, there is at least one other district that has offered support to make sure that steering committee members could participate because they were so remote. So.
Oh no, Comcast will take care of it.
Rhonda, you were saying something?
No, I'm done.
He was just horsing around with Bishop. So
Be quiet, Bill.
So if we look at the second, I have to remember that we're being recorded here. So if we look at
okay.
Second Tuesday in November would be the 10th. Mark, is that what you're thinking? Somewhere in that area?
I was just throwing that out there as a thought in order to give the committee time to survey themselves on the priorities so that when we do have the next meeting, it's not spent figuring that out and we're not rushed on all sides.
Okay. So committee members, does that work? And that's certainly only a suggestion on my part.
The second or the third Tuesday should work. Do note that the Veterans Day is the following day, Wednesday, the 11th.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and again, I just didn't know if anyone, again, with where we are as far as COVID, I don't know how many people are traveling, but if anyone would be traveling for Thanksgiving.
My calendar is open for the 10th. That actually is better than the last week, the the fourth Tuesday, I'm actually supposed to have some family traveling into town in October. So,
All right, so committee members, we have the 10th as a tentative next meeting date. Does anyone have any objections to that?
No objections. I'm up for that one.
okay.
No
I'm
objections.
going to take Ariel's lead and ask for objections, not confirmations. So,
Okay.
so no, any objections on the 10th of November?
No.
All right, we will set that for our next meeting date, and we will of course send all that information out.
And did steering committee members want to identify potential topics for that meeting at this point, or?
I think we're going to do the poll.
Ah,
I
perfect.
think we're going to take what we've got and then send it out, and then see if there's any additional comments.
So we're not going to have an October meeting?
No.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Turn up your what do you call it? Your cable.
And Chris, if you can check the chat, there's a hint for you in the chat.
I see that, Ariel.
Thanks, Adrian. That's a good one. But that, as we come back, we should have the results of our survey by then. But that is hopefully going to also be a final draft of the charter.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So I think we are in business. Any public comments off agenda, or just public comments in general? Okay.
Bill, you have one that Victoria just put her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Victoria. I didn't see you. Go ahead, please.
That's okay. I raised it kind of late. I have an opportunity to record a 1 to 5 minute video for the Sacramento Tree Foundation. Not an opportunity, but a requirement actually. And I've been asked to cover the topic of air quality and how trees can be a solution to that. And I really liked what Tito said tonight about PCP and how COVID's going to go away, but air quality can stay with you forever. So I'd like to invite him and Pat and anyone else on the committee or the public that's listening who's interested to be a part of the recording, which is kind of like a public service announcement, or something that would go out to all of the tree recipients who have received spud trees over the last 20 years or so. So it would have a wide reach. If anyone's interested in recording a clip for that with me, please reach out to me. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and it's really easy. It's victoria@sactree.com. Like I said, it's really simple and a small video, but if anybody's interested, I would love to have you guys involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.
Absolutely.
And one last quick announcement I almost forgot on the district side. We are also going to be holding a workshop next week on Wednesday, virtual, regarding year 3 community nominations. This would be new communities. I know there's been discussion from the public during this discussion about areas of interest. I'm sorry, David's correcting me. Thursday. We originally talked about Wednesday. It'll be Thursday of next week. The information is available on our website for anyone that wishes to participate, but we will be talking about new communities in Sacramento that will be that are part of our previous nomination list, but we'll be talking about new communities for year 3 because we do have many other areas in Sacramento, like our South Sacramento Florin community, that are in need.
Very good.
All right. So we have next steering committee. We don't have any parking lot items that I can see.
All right.
No, we don't. We
Okay.
had some action items that basically the district will share out the CARB SERP training videos and the checklist at the end of the blueprint appendix C, and then we'll be polling the SC members to identify your priority topics for pre-SERP.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I've already started looking up the and I had seen it before, but the CERT training that videos.
Okay.
All right. Hey, you know what? We can actually end on time.
We are going to end on time. So anything for the good of the order? Steering committee members?
Yes. We're
Yes.
ending on time.
Yes. Let's not change that.
Okay, Bill.
Amen to that. Amen.
A motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. I bet we have about 10 seconds. So
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
as always, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it more than we can tell you. Have a nice evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Stay
everybody.
healthy, everyone. Stay healthy.
Likewise, take care.
Yeah, everybody
Stay.
take care.
Thank you,
Night,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.